Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Level Up Life Safety Podcast. My name's Chad, and I started this podcast after I spent nearly 20 years in the security industry, dealing with contractors who are frustrated with ever-changing technologies, vulnerability, system integration, along with the lack of education. Our goal at the Life Safety Podcast is to address these challenges and provide you, along with the security industry, relevant solutions, and hopefully, if I do my job right, I'll add a little entertainment value to your day also. Today on the podcast, I'd like to explore the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the commercial real estate market. It's been more than 6 months since the coronavirus thrust our country into a lockdown back in March. While most of our states are well along the path of reopening, there is going to be the requirement of wearing masks and continuing to observe social distancing. In our recent experiences, we have found that most companies have adopted new work-from-home type strategies, allowing their staff and their customers the ability to meet virtually. Our educational institutions have all moved to an e-learning or a hybrid type of model, allowing for in-person along with e-learning environment. Obviously, many of the contractors in the commercial security installation business have been struggling with customers and clients that use capital expenditures to pay for projects. Many of their clients have reduced, postponed, or even worse, canceled these projects in response to the shutdown. My guest today has spent nearly 35 years working with business leaders and owners to navigate the complex process of finding the ideal lease space and negotiating the complexity of these leasing terms. Mr. Pink is the founder of MAP Real Estate, based right here in Chicago, Illinois, along with being the founder of a non-for-profit organization called Investing in Communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Michael Pink to the podcast. So, Michael, I have to tell you, it's quite an impressive resume. You and I began talking commercial real estate several weeks ago, and I thought, who better to talk about commercial real estate and the concerns and the uncertainties than somebody who's been through 5 recessions in the last 3.5 decades? Perhaps you can help us navigate this a little better. Let me ask you a couple questions. With COVID, how do we compare the experiences today with what clients might have been experienced in the commercial real estate crisis of 2008?
Well, first of all, thank you, Chad. I'm delighted to be here with you and your guests. In answer to your question, I would say that the level of concern for the future is very deep now, as it was then. So is the level of uncertainty. But the science is there. All we have to do is follow it, as other countries have done to successfully reopen their economies. If you're an office space user, you probably don't want to expand right now, but you might want to extend your lease. And this is an excellent time to negotiate both near-term cash flow relief and long-term economics that are conditioned by landlords being concerned about their own futures. Some sectors are doing well. For example, logistics, industrial, refrigerated storage. Some sectors are not, including obviously retail and hospitality. And we all know that residential is booming right now.
And I'd have to assume, obviously people are working from home. We've gone through this. Everybody needs to increase their electronics, get better computers, better technology. So companies like Amazon obviously are doing fantastic. I'm assuming they're moving to bigger facilities. They need more throughput. You mentioned refrigeration, a couple others. Can you expand upon maybe some of those other guys that are doing well? What are you seeing out there?
Well, first of all, I have to admit that those are not my sectors of specialization. I am an office tenant rep. But what I can tell you is that these are things that I hear in podcasts that I'm listening to, and I've listened to more podcasts and webinars in the last several months than in my previous life.
Haven't we all?
What seems to be going on is that Amazon, I believe, is single-handedly responsible for something like 25% of industrial leasing around the United States. It's phenomenal. But with regard to something like cold storage, it simply is a direct consequence, as best I can tell, to the pandemic and the way in which our society is dealing with the pandemic. And for that reason, there are more companies interested in warehouse space. Much of that warehouse space wants to be refrigerated. It's as simple as that.
So you had mentioned that your clients are more in the commercial leasing space, office environments, I assume. Of the
Yes.
current clients that you have leases that are coming up for renewal, are they downsizing? Are they moving out? Are they signing short-term leases? I mean, what is the thought process here? Are they just kind of in a wait and see mentality?
Well, the answer to that question is all of the above. They're doing all of those things, plus signing long-term leases whose economics are lower, I think, than they would otherwise be were it not for the pandemic. And the reason is because it isn't just the tenants and the charities and the companies that are the tenants that are concerned. Landlords are very concerned also. And in this environment, it's possible to potentially secure through negotiation both short and near term cash flow relief, as well as long term economics that are favorable.
For those of us that don't understand the short term or the near term cash flow relief, can you expand upon that a little bit more?
Sure. So imagine that someone has a lease. They're obligated to pay rent during the pandemic, just as they were before the pandemic. And yet their business has fallen down a dark hole. Such a company, I think, would like, if possible, to either pay no rent for some period of time or less rent. There are expressions that we use in my industry, including free rent and rent abatement. They're simply names for what happens when a company gets to use its space without paying rent for the space or paying a lessened rent. That's what's possible to negotiate for the short term and near term. That's what I mean by cash flow relief. And if that's negotiated in the context of a long-term renewal or extension of the lease, that's why we call it blend and extend, then it's possible not only for the company to benefit from the reduced rental expense, but frequently they will not have to repay those dollars that they saved. If all the company wants to do is say to the landlord, the pandemic is killing me, I need to pay you less rent, then possibly the building owner will agree to defer some of the rent. It will have to be repaid with interest. And
It
that's
wouldn't
if all
necess-
you're doing
it
is
would,
looking for the rent relief. If you're willing to extend the lease, excuse me, then it's possible to get the free rent and not pay it back.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a win, but it's a not lose so much, not lose so much on both sides here, right? Because I mean, the landlord's making less money because he's not getting his full rent. But the alternative is he could lose all that rent if the renter was to leave. And at the same time, the business owner who's the renter, he's not bringing in the revenue he used to bring in, so he can't afford to pay the full rent. So if everything happens to turn the corner that we're expecting it to, the long-term lease, everybody's going to make the same amount of money at the end.
Well, yeah, generally speaking, I would say that that's a reasonable way to interpret the situation. But in fact, in my opinion, in my experience, it really is a win-win situation. It's not that each party loses less than they might otherwise. It's always been the case, long before the pandemic, that building owners are interested in tenants leasing more space or leasing space for longer time, more years on the lease. In this environment, generally speaking, companies are not interested in leasing more space. So what they can bring to the negotiating table to give a value to the building that the building doesn't yet have is agreeing to extend the lease for more time. In return for gaining that value, the building owner rationally can agree to free rent of some amount And so this is simply a way for business to go on as it always has. But in the context of the pandemic, it allows the tenant to gain something of critical interest, which is a lesser overhead expense. And at the same time, they can secure long-term economics that are more favorable than they might otherwise be.
Are there resources available that kind of help to identify what the going rate is and to help in those negotiation processes to find out what's available and what the cost might be?
Well, in fact, there are resources. There was in the industry some years ago a roll up across the country, and the company that won that is now called CoStar. It is publicly traded. CoStar is the 9 million pound gorilla in the commercial real estate information industry nationally. We subscribe to the CoStar database for metropolitan Chicago, and that is the resource that all commercial brokers, managers, owners look to. It really is the gold standard in the industry. And with it, we are able to have all of the information that's publicly available on all retail, industrial, and office space in the metropolitan area, including asking prices and a number of other data points.
You know, there's a lot of businesses that have reduced the number of people reporting to their offices or an on-site work environment. Do you foresee these businesses deploying video and access control systems to prevent losses or unauthorized access now that we have less people reporting to an office on a daily basis?
I surely do. It seems to me that I'm not sure the jargon that you use in your industry, but being able to remotely check in on one's premises, I would have to think becomes more important in this environment, whether you are a retailer in hospitality, whether you're a school, whether you're a for-profit in a high rise. It seems to me that there will almost without question be an interest kind of universally in having the technology that allows the people who control these enterprises to see what's going on in their physical premises.
I'd have to assume also, from an access control perspective, the ability, I know a lot of businesses have, timers on their doors, and many of these businesses might be unlocked from 8 to 5, and now nobody's showing up. So not only do I have to worry about people coming in and potentially taking personal effects and property, but the intellectual property that's now made available to unauthorized personnel that shouldn't be in that building, just wanderers by. We have seen a huge uptick. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Crime is on the rise. We've seen a lot of looting in the Chicago market specifically due to a lot of the protesting. So there's been a lot of theft. There's been a lot of vandalism. There's been a lot of losses, and coupled with the fact that we just don't have personnel within the building, I'm assuming that there are other reasons that people are looking to increase their security. But ultimately, when we start looking at the shrinkage and the theft that happens within retail environments, there are also our hospitality, the bars, the restaurants, the people downtown that make their living by having their restaurants and their businesses down there. Their businesses are now being affected by people not showing up for work also. So what does the overall economy look like just in the short term, and what do you expect to happen in the long term?
Well, first of all, I agree with what you just said. I think that there will be an interest on the part of all types of enterprises, taxable and tax exempt, to beef up, if you will, whatever they've been doing in the past with respect to particularly knowing who goes into their space and when, and being able to see what they're doing in the space while they're there. In answer to the question that you just asked, I will tell you that the experts in my industry, and there are webinars and podcasts that are organized by CoStar and other significant industry players nationally that discuss the state of the market, and they do it by sector and to some degree by region. So it turns out that Chicago, among all major metropolitan areas in this country, has the broadest base of kinds of companies that represent the companies that are office tenants, period. It is the most diverse in the country. For that reason, the prediction is that whatever the hit from the pandemic is to the commercial real estate industry, it will be lighter in Chicago than in a number of other cities where, for example, most of the business activity might have to do with energy or with hospitality or entertainment or retail. So the other thing that I can say is that prior to the pandemic, in the second half of 2019, the data clearly reflect that there had begun a downturn at the top end of the price range, which is obviously coincidental with the top end of the quality range of office buildings. This is referred to as Class A and trophy product. And that slowdown began before the pandemic, and it will be exacerbated most in that sector of the office market as the pandemic plays out. But what this really means is that if you can afford to buy a Rolls Royce for cash, you can get a very, very good deal on the Rolls Royce. But
So,
if you are a customer who's in the market to finance the purchase of a high-end Buick, the economics are not that different than they ever were because of the pandemic.
so you're seeing certain parts of the real estate market, specifically more your higher end, is going to be the ones that are going to have the biggest impact here, whereas the office space requirement is still going to be there, whether it be me growing my business or somebody else coming in and taking over that space. It is going to come back, and it should come back relatively quickly.
Well, but you've touched on a couple of ideas here. Let me try to expand on them individually when I give an answer. So, yeah, I think that there is a panic right now, just as there was when 9/11 happened, just as there was around 2007 or 8. And what happens? Things get back to normal eventually. It's believed that in the Chicago office market, things will begin to return to normal in the latter half, let's say, of 2021. I'm a little reluctant to get too exact with the calendar for reasons that I think all of your listeners will understand. But the expectation is that there will be developed an effective therapy for COVID-19. There will be developed effective vaccines. As soon, however, as we are able to get on top of the pandemic, the way certain other countries have, multiple other countries, we should be able to return the economy and business activity mostly to normal. We'll all be wearing masks. We will all be circulating either in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction around the corridors in our respective offices or schools. That's going to be pandemic life. But yes, the economy is expected to return. The office market is expected to return. The buildings will not be vacated forever. Yes, indeed.
That's good to know, and I think
What I think.
that's what most of them are trying to. Most of us, and my listeners, are trying to actually identify is what does the future look like. There's so much uncertainty, and as we talk to customers every day, they're telling us that it's business as usual, but we're seeing huge downturns, and the opportunities are becoming smaller and smaller. So we all have hope that this does get better, and it does get a brighter future for all of us. We just nobody can put a timeline on it. Yeah,
Right.
when I was circling around your website, I came across Investing in Communities. This appears to be a charity. Tell me a little bit about what is this and what's your affiliation?
Thank you for asking. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. Investing in Communities, and full disclosure, I am co-founder of Investing in Communities. It is a nonprofit, but it's not a charity. I tell people that it's the opposite of a charity because so far we have given over $650,000 to charities, including schools, that are always chosen by other people.
Always chosen by
This
other
is,
people. Well, help me to understand that. What do you mean chosen by other people?
thank you, I will. I'm going to tell you about when we planted the seed for Investing in Communities, because that'll make it clear to your listeners why I say that the charities are chosen by other people. In 1995, Sharon's and my company was 9 years old, and we said to each other, let's be in business in a different way so that when we show up in the morning to help ourselves, we know that we're doing something more than that. We began to give away 10% of the gross on many, many transactions that we handled. And when I say 10% of the gross, I mean 10% of the total commission that we earned, we would give to a charity chosen by our client. And we did this in a way that was compliant with the Illinois License Act. We invented perhaps something that can accurately be described as client-directed, broker-funded philanthropy. That put us on a path to become very involved in social enterprise. And we realized in retrospect that we had turned MAP Real Estate into a social enterprise 25 years ago, before the expression was fashionable. And eventually we learned that we could do much more than that for the world. So what we are doing is providing to the consuming public, and that means individuals that are consumers and companies that are consumers, a better way to utilize the services of any real estate agent or broker anywhere in the country. And with this better way, you and your listeners and the companies they work for and the employees of those companies, anyone who cares about something, which happens to be, it turns out, an awful lot of us, when we have the desire for a real estate transaction, we might want to buy or sell a home because that's what our family needs. We might want to buy or sell commercial real estate or lease commercial space because that's what our company needs. If we're going to have such a transaction and we want to be represented by a real estate licensee as our agent, we empower each of those consumers also to choose a charity or school located anywhere in the United States, and they will have the ability to give to that charity or school part of the commission that will be paid to the lucky agent that these consumers choose to represent them. And the remarkable part about our model is that this has nothing at all to do with generosity on the part of real estate agents and brokers. It instead has to do with our having gained insights into how things work within the real estate brokerage industry. And we learned that we could leverage certain aspects of the industry and of the profession that are structural. They're not going to go away. Chief among those aspects is competition. I am in a highly competitive profession. And it turns out that with frequency, one real estate broker will refer to another real estate broker an opportunity to represent a client. There are many, many reasons why this happens. And so what we're looking to do is to provide the public with a way to cause any brokered real estate transaction to involve the payment of a referral fee. And because of our place in the process and our mission, we make it possible for that fraction of the commission to be removed from the confines of the real estate brokerage industry and become funding for a charity or school located anywhere in the country. And when I say that we make it possible to be removed from the confines, I'm really referring to the fact that in every state, there is the equivalent of the License Act that we have in Illinois. And the License Act in each state, on the basis of our research, and we're not attorneys, we're not accountants, we're just college educated people, we believe it to be the case that the License Act in every state prohibits a licensee from saying to a prospective client, make me your agent and I will give part of my commission to your favorite charity. We can, in many states, it used to be 40 states, I'm not sure if that remains the number, we can, in those states, if we choose to, give part of our commission to our client from whose transaction we earned the commission. But that's not a way to make the world better. It's not a way to generate new funding for charities and schools. That's why we've organized investing in communities the way we have, in order to create this new revenue stream for social sector organizations. And you know something? The revenue stream will go on in perpetuity because there will always be people needing to buy or sell real estate, and there will always be companies needing to lease commercial space.
So it's a referral fee. The referral
Yes,
fee becomes the donation. What does
yes.
that look like? How does that get broke down? Give me an idea dollar
Okay.
wise. What would my contribution be if I was to sell my home and work with you in order to make this happen?
I'll tell you the math, and then if I may, particularly if you'll remind me, I will tell you the very simple process that makes all of this possible. Here's
Sure.
the math. If we assume that the seller of a property, when you list your home, for example, let's assume that you're going to pay a 5% commission. The way it works in the residential industry is that that commission is split more or less 50-50 with the broker that represents the buyer. So let's assume that you are either the buyer or the seller, that you have the power to say to any agent, I would like you please to represent me. And then the agent would say, boy, thank you very much. I appreciate that opportunity. So we're assuming a 5% commission. It's split 50-50. We have learned by speaking with residential brokers and agents in many cities around the country that when we ask the question of them, what do you typically pay brokers that refer a client to you? The answer that we get very quickly and very frequently is, oh, 25% of the commission. So that's the number we use. And then we give slightly more than 70% of that referral fee to the charity or school of your choice. It's not our choice. It's not the agent's choice. You, as the buyer or seller or the commercial tenant, you decide which charity or school gets the funding. Then you decide which of the agents we have determined actually are appropriate for your consideration, you want to work with. You do your deal. Let's say you sell the house or you end up buying the home. Then the referral fee is paid to us after the commission is paid to either the buyer's broker or the seller's broker, whichever one is using investing in communities. We clear that check and we write a check on investing in communities bank account that we send to your charity or school, and the amount is a fraction more than 70%. Here's the math. If it's a $300,000 home and you're the buyer or the seller, then the charity or school of your choice will receive from us, in almost all cases, a check for $1,300. This money is referred to as unrestricted in the world of fundraising. And very simply, that means the recipient can use it for any purpose, which makes it an even more important contribution, because all nonprofits would like to have more unrestricted funding than they get.
Sure.
If the home has a purchase or a sale price of $1 million, then your charity or school would receive from us, in most instances, a check for $4,300. In other words, the amount of the distribution, if it is a purchase or sale transaction, will typically be a little more than 0.4% of the purchase or sale price, and it is completely free to the buyer or seller. It comes only out of the commission in the form of a referral fee, and then we give most of that referral fee away. And Chad, if you were introduced to us by one nonprofit, but for whatever reasons you would like a different nonprofit to receive the funding from us, then we will send the $1,300 distribution to your favorite charity, and we will send $94 to the introducing charity, and that $94 is just a fraction more than 5% of the referral fee. And then we pay Mark Zuckerberg so that more of the supporters of your favorite charity will see our post when we write about the everyday transaction, and we will describe how many bedrooms and bathrooms, what type of home, we'll describe the city and the neighborhood. We will use your first name and last initial so that you can remain anonymous. In the post in our social media that talks about the impact, the number of lives that your favorite charity was able to change and improve as a result of the funding.
So you do the follow-up. With all the recipients of this also, and make sure that they got the money, obviously, but you do a write-up on it to explain a little bit about how they benefited from this?
Yes, because for nonprofits and schools, we represent what's called a capacity building resource. Capacity building, it means strengthening. And the way in which we do that is by providing two essential nutrients. One of them is funding from a new source, and we've already discussed how important it is that the funding is unrestricted. The other essential nutrient is some increment of visibility on the internet that the recipient nonprofit would otherwise not receive. And it turns out that in this day and age of the internet and social media, that it's very important for all enterprises, taxable and tax exempt alike, to maintain contact with their sphere of influence. And we help them do that in that way.
So let me make sure I understand correctly then. So for example, I'm going to purchase a new home, or I'm going to lease a new manufacturing facility, and I want to be represented by an agent who's going to advocate for me. I would just reach out to you and you would put all this together. It sounds like it's pretty simple formula. My real estate agent works with you, and you guys do all the paperwork, and you put it all together.
It's very easy. Let me explain the logistics. It is simple. It is fast. It is totally transparent. Here's what happens. As a member of the public, you are welcome to come to our website and use a web form that you'll see in the top navigation. On the web form, you are requesting that we assist you in making your deal make a difference for what you care about. The first thing that you do is tell us that you're an individual or a company, and depending upon which you say, that changes the rest of the web form. So if you're an individual, you then tell us that you're buying or selling. You would tell us how many bedrooms and bathrooms, the city and the neighborhood if you're selling, the city and the neighborhoods in which you're interested if you're buying. On that web form, you choose the charity or school that you would like to receive the funding. You also tell us on the same web form if there's a real estate agent that you would like to work with.
So I don't have to work with your real estate agents. You don't have a network of them. It's whoever I want to use.
whoever you want to use, any agent that's licensed in the state where you would like to buy or sell or lease commercial space, any agent. So what we do then is we will contact the agent whose name you give us. And very simply, I will say, hello, Chad asked me to make arrangements with you so that you can list his home for sale. Because the agent already knows you, let's say that you're in you play tennis together, or you're in a knitting club, or they were in the Army with you. It doesn't matter. It could be the agent that you used 10 years ago when you bought the house that you're now selling.
Sounds like a win-win to me. If I was to look at this donation that's being made, is that made in my name? Is it tax? Is there a tax deduction that I get? How does that work?
Well, two separate issues. Yes, the donation is made by us in your name, whether you're an individual or a company, but there is no tax implication for you, the buyer or seller or company that uses investing in communities. There is no tax implication for the charity or school that you choose to receive the funding. The only party that has a tax implication is the agent and their brokerage company, who remit the referral fee to us. And for them, the tax implication is the most favorable possible. I'm referring to the fact that it is an ordinary business expense that is deductible against both federal and state taxes.
So the clients that I deal with are obviously more clients that you would want to deal with. They're always looking for space. They're either growing or they're downsizing, so they're constantly going to be in need of retail or rental space. How do they get a hold of you? I mean, obviously, I think they would want to use your service to help them to relocate, but I think that the charity helps them too, and it helps you. It's like I said, I think that this is a perfect opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about how do we go about getting a hold of you, and what should they expect out of your services.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If by what to expect from the services of investing in communities, you can expect us to be very responsive to email or phone. You can expect us to be backstopping the process of putting you in touch with appropriate agents and having the paperwork taken care of for the referral fee and for the philanthropy to fund what you're passionate about. But we really don't do more than that as investing in communities, because we have nothing to do with the brokerage transaction itself other than referring you to the agent of your choice. Okay. The way in which the public can find us is either coming to our website, which is iiconline.org, or finding me on LinkedIn. We have, I think it's easy to find us.
Okay. Obviously, your real estate website, is that maprealestate.com?
Yeah, so if I may be a little more expansive on the services that can be expected from Map Real Estate, I can tell you that if I haven't disclosed this already in today's broadcast, I can tell you that I personally have run over 900 client projects around Metro Chicago. We take a very, very hands-on approach. We take what we do for our clients very personally, and we become your real estate department, as simple as that. And we become your real estate department for free, because our total compensation is paid by the building owner in whose building you either lease space or where you buy office condominium space or sublease. As our client, you do not pay us.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the contact information, your websites, collateral material. There's a couple PDF documents that I saw that I think would be beneficial for everybody to be able to download within the website and also on the YouTube video side of this, so that they can be able to contact you via LinkedIn, either through the charity or through the MAP Real Estate website, along with a link to your LinkedIn profile, so that they'll be able to get in contact if the need is there. I greatly appreciate you coming on the show today. You've been a wealth of information, and obviously the charity sounds incredible. And I encourage everybody to at least go there, take a look at what you guys have to offer. But if we're in the space to buy, sell a home, or commercial real estate space, they should definitely take advantage of this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Have a great day. I greatly appreciate it.
You too. Bye.
I would like to thank my friend Michael Pink for joining us today. And of course, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. We have uploaded all the show notes, documents, and of course, Michael Pink's contact information for those of you in need of his services or would like to learn more about investing in communities to our website at www.leveluplifesafety.com. Help us by spreading the word and sharing this podcast, or by clicking that subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Chad Szekeres of Divine 180 saying, stay safe, everyone.